Okay, welcome to On the Bench. I'm your host for this episode, Brendan Sonnone. Zach, am I blinking enough?
You are.
Good, good. Got that going for us. As we get into this episode, want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Chattanooga Whiskey. God knows Chattanooga Whiskey is carrying us through this season. You can find them throughout the Southeast. Just an excellent distillery. Well wishes to everyone in Tennessee and North Carolina, parts of Georgia, man, where the storm went through the Big Bend and North. We were lucky in Tallahassee to do okay, but thinking of everyone throughout the footprint of the Southeast. So kind of an awkward transition sponsorship, but hopefully they're doing well in Chattanooga and just throughout the Southeast region. Chattanooga Whiskey, a great sponsor. Please support them. Support a product that supports us. They are excellent. It's a high standard whiskey, affordable. Their 111 proof is a benchmark for value, high proof bourbons in my estimation. Also, the Turner Group. Poor Colin, like just buy him a house already. That's the only thing that's going to make him feel better at this point. Even then, I'm not really entirely sure. But in all seriousness, Colin, diehard FSU fan, loves Florida State. He's as perplexed as we are as what we saw on Saturday and what we're seeing this season. But that's not stopping him from being a monster just on the trail of buying or selling homes. And he does a great job in Central Florida and is equipped throughout the state of Florida to help you get where you want to go. Literally, the Turner Group, Colin, Amy, everyone, Griff, everyone at the Turner Group can help you out. So, all right, let's get into it, gents. FSU is 1-4 on the season. Chris went to Dallas. I hope the barbecue was good. Did you at least have that going for you?
It was. Terry Black's was well worth it.
Okay. All right. So you had that at least going for you. FSU loses to SMU 42-16, a game that was competitive for the first half, albeit sloppy. And then it really just gets away from you there. So I don't think doing a full game analysis is going to be ideal at this point. I think sticking to more big picture stuff or even getting into the weeds with some minutia within the program, but maybe not the team in general. I thought our X's and O's guys did a really good job with the instant reaction, and that was well viewed, well listened to, and the tone of it were three guys who were FSU fans who were very frustrated and disgusted by what they're seeing, understandably so. And we're trying to sift through this and make sense of things is what we're trying to do here today. So I'm just going to play a bunch of buyers and knowns. That's how I'm going to start off. If we want to just jump into any other topics or conversations, we'll just kind of go through it here. In all transparency, guys, I meant to get up about 6:30 or so and do a list of questions, and I ended up sleeping for 12 hours last night. So yeah, must have needed it. All right, Buyer Sedone, sponsored by
the Turner Group.
Chris, I'm gonna throw this to you. FSU had a little quit in it on Saturday night.
I 1000% buy that. I wrote that it crept into the conversation in my column, and yes, I don't know if it was a pity party, which led to the quit, or just a decision to quit. But yeah, they got beat, and they got beat twice on that field in the sense where like they knew it was lost, and they played that way down the stretch, and that happens. I think that's a natural human reaction, especially when things are going really poorly. It wasn't something that showed itself early in the game. It showed itself very late when the game was getting away from them. So I kind of understand it, not excusing it, but I understand it.
What are some things that you saw?
I definitely think it made an appearance. Just so after the interception, you could tell who made an effort after that interception and who didn't. The video speaks very clearly for itself. And just in general, the willingness to tackle, the aggressiveness, the willing to kind of play to the final whistle, disregard what the scoreboard says, and just go play. Mike Norvell in the post game said he didn't like the response of the team. I asked a question along the lines of, "Are you concerned about quitting after 1-4, with being at 1-4?" He said he would not allow that in his program. It's not something that he will tolerate.
He also
said he did not believe.
Yeah, he said in that response that he didn't think that guys had quit. Right.
Correct. Yeah, correct. He did not believe that had happened. I did feel like it showed up, not across the board as a team, but there were individuals that certainly were, making business decisions down the stretch.
If you unfortunately want to go rewatch that game somehow, go watch the players' reaction to when they recover the muff punt by SMU. None of them are excited. They just treat it like they're going out there like any other play. They get the ball inside the 30-yard line of SMU, and I think it's pretty clear that this offense has completely lost faith in its ability to move the ball successfully and be a overall successful unit behind the quarterback. And I'm sure we'll get into that, but that was the moment to me where I'm like, yeah, this team doesn't care. Like they quit. Um, and that's the first time that I can remember saying that about this team since maybe the 2020 team. I mean, and that wasn't really even Norvell's team. I mean, that was a mess of a team overall, with the carryover from Taggart's tenure. But yeah, I mean that looked eerily similar to some of the moments we saw from those teams.
I'm hesitant as someone who played the sport and played it poorly, but I did play, and I understand when things start snowballing on you in a game. And I've been on both sides of it. Played on good teams that were able to lean on people, and vice versa. Played on bad teams that have gotten their asses kicked too. It's difficult after a certain period of time to do the little things in the course of a game, and that doesn't mean that you gave up on the season. Doesn't mean that you just tuned out the coach. It just means that that game you haven't done the right things maybe to prepare yourself for when failure happens. And I guess I'm hesitant to say quit, just because I think there's a lot that comes with that phrase, and I think fans in general are quick to it. I see what Chris saw, I see what Zach saw with body language, and I think that's what concerns me more than results, more than some things even in the play. Like after the game, broadcast cameras are showing players kind of smiling and laughing around afterwards, and those are little things that I see that concern me. I don't know if I'm quite there yet, but they've got
I don't
issues.
I don't care about post game stuff. Post game is the game is over. Like there's nothing else to do. My thing was in the moment of singular plays. Was the effort made by the 11 guys on the field to do what had to be done on that play? And too often it did not feel like it was across the board being done. It wasn't entirely groups checking out. It was an individual decision for a few guys here and there. And it just permeated in there. They got outscored 28-7 in the second half. It was never competitive. Really, how many games have been in some degree competitive down the stretch for them this year? Georgia Tech, Cal are the two that come to mind for me that I would say were. But other than that, they're not particularly good at playing like a team that plays to the final whistle, who's trying to give
Memphis
themselves the
kind of.
best opportunity.
Yeah, it
It
was an
just
8-point game.
as soon as the game gets a little bit out of reach, it's over with. They're not a team that responds to adversity well at all.
That is partially what happens when you have a really poor one side of the ball. Like that is an element of it.
Brendan, let me ask you this:
No.
what are examples of quitting to you then? If you're not going to draw the line of quitting in that game,
I remember the last time I felt distinctly that I covered a Florida State team that had quit, like oh they're done with this coaching staff, was FSU at Boston College in 2017. Would have been the last time that I was like, oh, that's it. And going back to that game, and longer term FSU fans will remember that as like one of Jimbo's final games. Although they rallied a little bit to win some bowl crap games and get bowl eligible. But they went up to Boston College. I think the score was 35-7. It was never competitive. Players were loafing from the beginning of the game. Like it wasn't game dictated. It wasn't like this snowball. It was very early on where players had bad body language. Coaches weren't willing to coach players on the sideline. I remember the Randy Sanders and James Blackman interaction. Not vividly. I wish I remembered it better for this talking point, but I do recall like basically James Blackman went over to Randy and Randy just kind of nodded over to Jimbo, like go ask that dude over there, basically. So like that's that was catastrophic in the sense like that it was failing throughout every single level of the program. And like it's just to me when I start saying quit, like it has to be done. Like I have to be like, oh, you're not coming back from that. That's my own like I see what Chris said and I see what you saw. I saw the bad body language that bothered me. It's the thing that as someone who's played, I'm hesitant to understand how hard it is to play that game when you don't trust your offense to go and score 20 points for you. Like once you get to 24 points, it's done. Like you're not doing it. I understand that. I understand that when you don't have trust maybe in your coaching staff or trust in your own ability, what you've been taught to do, that you're going to I'm talking myself into it. Maybe they did
To
quit.
me,
I don't know.
you're describing that
Maybe they did. Maybe they did. I don't know.
You
In all
can't
seriousness,
scoreboard watch. You have to go do what the play demands you to
You're
do.
essentially
And I
saying
know
that
that's
once
tough.
they see
That's
the-
a lovely thing
I
to
can't
say.
defend it. They may have checked out. There may have been some quit. Okay, is that what you
It's
want
a
me to say,
lovely
Zach?
thing to say. Don't scoreboard watch. I know all teams do, and it happens. But like, there's a degree of you're bad. Try to go be good on this play and try to stack good plays and see where that takes you. And if you still lose, but it's 31-16 and not 42-16, and you got outscored 28-7 in the second half, and you allowed career highs are this by the quarterback for the opposing team. Like, that speaks better to an effort than the effort they put forth on Saturday evening.
I was trying to
In the
zoom in
second
on
half.
Zach to show how happy he was that he got me to. Basically, we just caught myself in a bunch of bullshit, and at least I could admit it. I guess that's growth.
All right,
That
what's
is
the next one?
Bayer Sonnone, FS. Here's big picture. Probably what we're start talking about some long term ramifications from what's happening this season. Bayer Sonnone, sponsored by
The Turner Group.
FSU, will have a top 25 prep recruiting class this season.
Chris, I'll let you go first.
Wait, why is Zach not taking it?
It's I haven't looked at high school recruiting rankings other than FSU's actual ranking, but like in general, the numbers. It doesn't actually take a whole lot to get to top 25 as long as you hit on blue chips at a high rate, which they were at one point. Don't know if that's going to continue, obviously. I think they might end up top 25, but I think that's sort of the line they're living at right now at best. I don't know. I don't feel confident they're going to retain 2 to 3 of their current commitments, and there's not a whole lot of confidence oozing from this oversized, out of shape body that that they're going to land equal replacements. So
yeah,
and they're what right now? 35 still, or
they're 29th after landing Byron Lewis.
Chris,
I forgot they added
if not confidence oozing out of your body, what else would be oozing out of your body right now?
Sweat and sadness. That's where we're at.
All right, got the podcast title. Zach, they're at 29th nationally. 1 5-star recruit, 10 4-star recruits, 12 recruits total in the class committed to you. Teams in the top 20 right now, and assuming this will change because there's gonna be more commitments to come down the road. But Clemson's at 19 with 9 4. How's Clemson ahead of you with 9 4-stars and no 5-stars, but only?
I think they're 4 stars, maybe rated higher.
Maybe they have 13 commitments. Anyways,
that is a solid class.
This is some CFB 25 math happening here. Let's see. TCU, not to be confused with Zach's CFB 25 program, which recruits at a very high level. 5 4-stars, 19. So this is more volume at this point. Ole Miss has 17 commits.
Everybody outside of Clemson's volume ahead of FSU.
Yeah. But who are you adding?
FSU's close to a numbers.
If FSU learned anything from this season, it should be that they load up on bodies along both the lines of scrimmage, but I doubt they do that. And I think they probably lose, like Chris said, a few more commits in this class. If you look back, I mean, it was already kind of a trend even when they were winning, but the top end of their class usually gets poached towards the end of the cycle. And obviously with them having the season they're having, they're not going to be able to play much defense against teams that are, legitimate teams that are trying to flip some of these guys. I mean, just to talk about a few guys, I mean, Kevin Wynn, I think he's probably at the top of the list of most likely to depart right now in my eyes. Just from talking to people around the program, I think he's the one they're most concerned about. Texas, South Carolina, Georgia, all trying to flip him. CJ Wiley, that's a Georgia, LSU, Auburn are all in on that one. Dalen McCutcheon's visited Texas A&M and Texas in back-to-back weeks, so his recruitment's certainly not shut down. Malik Clark visited South Carolina. He's from South Carolina. He's another 4-star receiver that FSU has committed. So these are guys that they're going to have to battle for, and it's not going to be easy to battle some of the teams that they're that are pushing to flip them, because a lot of those teams are playoff contenders, and FSU's pushing for a 3-win season.
Yeah, Zach, do me a favor as I do. I'm going to pull up the class calculator real quick. I don't know if we have to belabor this point. Basically, they have issues here as well. But let's say you lose Dalen McCutcheon. You're going to lose Kevin Wynn. So I'm just taking these guys out. I'm going to give you the number of what the class ranking is and let me know where that is nationally. Malik Clark, we'll take him out. CJ Wiley will take him out. So that leaves you with Solomon Thomas, who's obviously been recruited by LSU and others, Peyton Joseph, Byron Lewis, Tramel Jones, Xavier Thomas, Chase Lofton, Ethan Pritchard, and Max Redman. And that's 156.26 points with 8 commitments. Where would that put them?
71.
They're obviously going to, like, if they lose that many, they're going to find some bodies to replace them with.
My thing with that is like,
how many blue chip guys are you
not many. Yeah, they're not after many blue chip guys that are uncommitted.
And the issue is the guys that you're keeping, you're the best offer at this point. Like you're not beating out a comparable program for most of these guys. And if you are, like, even the idea of having to overpay for them, like let's say you say, well, we somehow find a bunch of money somewhere, right? He's like, we'll dig deep with Florida State. We'll find money somewhere that we didn't have it, and we'll try to convince CJ Wiley to stay at Florida State or Kevin Wynn to stay at Florida State. Well, like let's say you double what he's currently getting somewhere else. You don't think Texas has the ability to go and get, within 25% of that, 25 percentage points of that, and like then how much of a discount will players be willing to take to not play for a program that's currently bleeding right now, that like Florida State is? That is the long-term prognostication for the prep recruiting to me is concerning.
Yeah, and it feels like,
I guess it's a Sonnone for me at this point. Thanks, guys. I need a deep dive analysis.
It feels like they're not.
It's like
25 feels tough to attain. I think that is probably the best case scenario. I guess.
So this whole episode is just going to be us talking ourselves into Sonnones as it continues.
It feels like they're not moving fast enough when it comes to like board expansion, and not just board expansion, like offering guys, but like,
have you said that before, Zach? Is that new?
Getting involved in those recruitments. Well, it's obviously a more pressing issue now that they're losing. Like, I mean, this is you're on the verge of having less than 10 commits. And I mean, they've set up, I think, one new official visit with the DN from Texas, Toby Hastrup, who's a really good player, but like, I mean, they're going to be battling some big time schools
to get here.
Yeah,
who really wants them? Mizzou really wants them. There's a few others.
Chris, not optimistic there. If you can't tell by the way he phrased that.
He's in for an official visit when, Chris? UNC?
Yes, it was UNC. Yeah,
it's probably the best game to host, guys. Moving forward.
All right, Buyer Sonnone. Wait, did we get your Zach? Is it Buyer Sonnone?
I feel like Zach's a strong Sonnone.
Yeah.
Would you say it's a hard Sonnone?
I'll leave that up to your wife, sir.
Speaking of, what was subscribers talking about my testicles? It happened multiple times yesterday.
I didn't see that. I think you were like searching.
I think you sought that out, truthfully, if we're being honest here.
Okay. Buyer Sonnone. Chris, what did the fans say?
I believe he told the quarterback to F off and for Mike to give back the money. That's me, myself, Kurt Weiler from the Osceola.
Was he on the field?
Yeah, no, he was standing over the tunnel where the players were going back to the locker room at the end of the game.
Hopefully he wasn't on the field. That would have been
and I didn't turn around and make eye contact because I don't want to be that guy. But I was like, good Lord.
That would have been a viral moment if you recorded that, Chris.
Yeah, whatever.
That's not what
good for him.
If Chris turned around, he would have started. And why didn't you ask him the tough questions, Chris? Huh?
Or
what for? Because you won't ask the tough effing questions. All right, we're all in a good place. Sorry, my voice is a little gurgly. I had a hot pocket, 2 of them, before the show.
Not a toaster strudel.
No, those are awful, Brett. Those are so stupid. And the hot pockets, if people want a proper, quick, nutritious, protein dense breakfast, are currently on sale.
I'm not the king of nutrition. I mean, have you looked at me lately? It's going downhill fast. But Hot Pocket nutritious? That sounds like false advertising.
There may have been some plastic in a Hot Pocket based on Brett's information, and we were trying to figure out which was better, Hot Pocket or toaster strudel. But I digress. Buyer Sonnone, sponsored by
the Turner Group.
Youth Movement. full-on youth movement.
I mean, I'm by. Like, you need to retain your roster. That's going to be a hell of a journey this offseason, too. And one of the easy ways to retain guys is for them to believe there's a pathway to playing time. And some of it has to be earned in practice. There's guys that want to play who we've sat and watched practices and they haven't got out there in time for a rep. They haven't lined up correctly, stuff like that. Simple things that come with maturity. And that has to happen. But yeah, you got to find a place for some of them to play, even if it's a special teams rep or something. Just get them on the field, give them an opportunity. Yeah. I mean, Kyle Morlock made sure to bench himself by creating an interception for the opposition, but that created an opportunity for Landon Thomas, and that created mixed results. Landon had some good 20-yard touchdown, first reception of his career, some bad. He had some miscues in that game. Look at his PFF grade if you don't believe me.
Yeah. Yeah, he had a drop on the play. Brock came in. Amari Williams got targeted on the pick six and didn't give a great effort chasing it down. And like that's someone who has some physical tools, but it's kind of the double-edged sword of playing, inexperienced players. And I think
you're not any good, so you play them all. Like at this point, unload the bench, play them all. Especially when that game got out of hand, it should have been full on. Like. And I know they went with some Andre Otto played. I think Julian played Armello, who's not youth movement, but still a guy who's been a little bit buried, a little bit on the depth chart.
Guy, that's fine. He's a redshirt.
So you saw a bit more of that, but like, you're at that point, and you're gonna get there quickly on Saturdays too. So,
oh yeah, they have Clemson coming up, only 14-point underdog, which
shocked me. I thought it was gonna be like 20.5 points at opening and trend towards 24.
That was interesting. I mean, I thought the SMU line was actually kind of favorable for Florida State. I think we all collectively had Florida State losing to SMU. I don't think any of us had them covering the 5 points either.
I had them losing by 7. I think I might have been the closest.
Yeah.
I thought FSU's offense would play better Saturday, and they actually did.
They did for a half. They got the RPO glance.
At the same time, I thought they would allow at least 30 points, and SMU under Lashley doesn't lose when they scored 30 points. So. I'm a believer in numbers.
You are, and you retain them. So the idea of a youth movement, I guess, is when we say it, like I've thought before, you kind of want to integrate it a little bit. You don't want to just rip the Band-Aid off. But at this point, to Chris's point, I'm buying, like, take the lumps, because retention is the main thing that I'm concerned with at this point. I'm concerned with you keeping your athletic, promising pieces and being able to have a chance to develop them for the future.
I think I agree with you guys completely, but I just am of the belief that, whatever we believe or what the, public thinks that Norvell should do, like I don't believe he's going to make wholesale changes like that right now to his personnel. Like I doubt it.
He was asked about that.
What do you think the pivot point is for him then, Zach?
I don't think there is one. I just think he genuinely thinks just put the best players out there to help give him a better chance to win each game.
He is very much so week to week trying to just keep it together and win each game is the mindset that he has. And that's been a successful formula for him as a coach. It's just kind of, and it has been, but this is not a typical season either. The idea of the long-term stuff, like for the season, or beyond the season, when we talk about retention is like there are foxes in the henhouse. There are programs reaching out to current players who are underclassmen right now, trying to, like, that's a thing that's happening that you're going to have to continue to combat. They have third party, reaching out to parties or burner phones or whatever it can be. Like that's happening with coveted prospects that you've brought in that you're going to have to combat. And the best way to do it, to Chris's point, is by playing them. You don't have to. You can try to give yourself the best chance to win and avoid a lot of the blunders that you saw when you play young players. But then when it's not that different from playing
that's the
veterans, I think that's kind of the thing. But Zach, Mike was asked, people are saying that you don't ask him questions. Like, I think a lot of the answers that he's giving aren't making people feel good, right? A lot of people just want to say, we're going to play young players.
Yeah, that's my point with the whole, like, asking the tough questions. Mike doesn't take the bait with tough questions. He very much is a coach speak. I'll put the message out that I want to put out. Like he's not, you know, like yes, you can ask him a tough question and ask a follow-up or whatever. But I mean if you watch his press conferences, he's not one to really get in the weeds of a a tough question. Like he's good at kind of making it sort of a bland answer, in my opinion.
I asked the man if his team quit on the first question. I mean, shit, how much more tough does it need to get? Like, like I don't worry about that.
We've asked him every week about
that.
the quarterback situation, and he's given no answer, essentially.
I don't care about that fan narrative. I've learned in my career to quit giving a what about any of that, truthfully. But like, like, come on. I've sat through 30 years of FSU football, and I've covered it for more than 2 decades. Like, if I'm sitting and watching a horrendous product, which I currently am, disappointingly, I'm not going to be hesitant to ask about said horrendous product. At the same time, I'm not going to be combative with the head coach or any of his assistants in a forum such as that. If I want to have a combative conversation and I have enough of a relationship with the individual, I may do so off the record, but I'm not going to do that in that setting. That's not what that setting is. That's not how that setting is operated. That's not a professional way of going about this business.
Not professional. Yeah, I think some people just want us to yell and voice there because they can't yell.
Not the Florida Gators beat who loves yelling at their coach and I like and we're not. I think people want to think that like you guys are doing it on behalf of the practice access. Like you want to be nice to them to not lose practice access. That's not a thing at all.
To Mike's credit, and this might be hard for some outsiders to believe, if you ask something that ruffles his feathers, you still have the exact same access. Like it doesn't change. Yeah. He's not someone who turns into a personal vendetta over anything and everything like that. That's not. I've dealt with a coach here who that would happen with. Mike Norvell isn't that coach.
Chris is referring to Jimbo Fisher, by the way, for those who aren't.
I just said a coach, so no.
No, Jimbo was
like no secrets. No secrets.
Yeah. What I can't. I started getting lost in the weeds. I was looking at PFF grades. I don't know why I did that. My brain just started going looking at PFF grades, and I saw a lot of red.
Were you going to look at young guys?
I was. Thank you, Chris. I was going to look at young guys and how they perform because I feel like that. Yeah, it's like we have to understand what the rules of engagement are. If you're going to play them, they're going to be lumps, not nice lumps, much like Chris's oozing body. Defensively, let's see. They ended up playing a ton of players. Daryl Jackson, not good.
Did they eclipse 30?
Yeah, but there's this weird thing. Yeah, because they played like I don't know why Loane McCoy got a defensive snap and Brian Courtney got one. Something must have happened special teams wise to make that. Was there a fake
post pick? I can't remember exactly who the personnel was. I know Murray was out there, but I'm not sure who else.
I'm looking like Kai Bates and Charles Lester got one snap each.
So I did the final notes yesterday. FSU did not have Kai Bates down as playing. They didn't have him in their actual notes, nor did they have him in their play chart. They did have Lester playing. They did have Amari playing. They also had Destin Hill playing, which we all know isn't true. So that stuff gets cleaned up. But yeah.
Your safeties were atrocious. That was, and it looked bad in real time. It could be hard to tell sometimes, like if that's a safety with a miscue or a corner or linebacker. It could be tough if you don't know exactly coverage, right?
You're playing a scrambling quarterback.
Kirkland had a 70.
Kirkland was good. He had a 71 grade, and then everyone else was.
Yeah, Shaheem wasn't good. Ashland wasn't good. Limited reps.
Shaheem Brown was at 37.9 with a coverage grade of 29.8. And that is.
Yeah, he's the worst.
Conrad continued to do Conrad things.
Yeah, Conrad was not good. But offensively, so Jeremiah Byers did not do well first game back from injury. But really, it was the holding penalties, the two of them that were killer. But then after that, your two lowest grade players, Landon Thomas and Amari Williams, 42.7, 41.8.
I forget the stat. I'm not in a rush to look it up here at 8 a.m., but I think it was 80 plus yards wiped out by 5 offensive penalties.
They found it was comical
in that game.
The amount of ways that they found to negate something positive was mind-boggling. It doesn't even count in like
what bad teams do good.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It just becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy at a certain point. You just like we can criticize it, and it is worthy of criticism in my estimation. Like the 2 quarterback runs consecutively with DJ Uiagalelei, like what that is at this point. But if LT is able to make that block on the first play, it's a touchdown. Now, why do you have your thinnest running back in there at that play?
The fourth down play is one of the worst play calls I've seen him make, right?
Back. And it's a small sample set, but I went through and counted real quick, like during the commercial break there. They've only run 5 designed runs with DJ Ongole out of shotgun, like a non-quarterback sneak play, and only one of them were successful plays. So small sample size, but like there wasn't a whole lot of evidence, and like we have eyes, like we were able to see what it looked like when he tried to run the football.
Yeah,
not good.
It's not just a numbers thing. I mean, like just watch it. It does not look good ever when you design a run for him.
Well, that's like you talk about rat trapping. Like it's like when nothing's working, you're just trying to do all this different stuff, and like it just none of it's looking good right now. And the things that they do design well, Kyle Morlock drops the ball and it pops up 50 feet in the air and lands right in. But like you also have the highest drop rate among tight ends in the country. Stop using 2 of them at a time. Like I understand the other you don't feel great about your wide receivers either, but that's like when then you can start looking at, okay, the ingredients that you had weren't particularly great as well to cook with. So the cooking's obviously not very good either. But we had concerns about tight end in the offseason. Like that is something we were consistent with. That has shown itself and presented itself. No one drops the ball at a higher rate more in the country than Florida State's tight ends currently. Again, you have some issues here, and they're scrambling and trying to figure it out because no one expected these issues to be this prominent. Even if you did have concerns about the roster. By or Sonnone, sponsored by
the Turner Group.
FSU starts Brock Glenn against Clemson this weekend.
I think I'm sticking with Sonnone until I actually hear the head coach say that.
Sonnone.
Did DJ get hurt throwing the ball or on the
DJ banged, I think, both hands in that game.
He definitely dislocated the left
definitely a pinky situation on a non-throwing hand, but I believe he also banged his throwing hand, possibly on the final play he was in for. Watching him come off, the hands weren't wrapped heavily or anything. A couple fingers were taped together, which is to be expected after such a thing. So we'll see. But yeah,
hard position to play if your hands aren't working correctly. Most positions in that sport, but quarterback maybe more than others.
He gives them the best chance to win, Brendan.
I would say this. So
a 1 in 5 chance.
Brock Glenn went in. Well, yeah, that's what you have right now. Those are the numbers. Chris is beholden to the numbers, and you'd say 1 in 5 is currently the chance that he gives you of winning any given game. But you put in Brock Glenn. Hey, first play was a dot. Like, it was a really good ball, quick release over the top of the defense and dropped. He misfired on the pass to Darian Williamson, but I'd rather have you throw it long and where no one else can get it than, FSU is one of the most intercepted teams in the country currently. So I'd rather that, I suppose. Gets sacked pretty early on. Offensive line kind of in pieces right now, and didn't love the body language from teammates after the quarterback got sacked, so that wasn't great. But again, it's Brock Glenn going into, and people are trying to judge it of like, well, he didn't really spark the offense. Well, yeah, at that point in the game, like that's not what he's in there for. And it was another opportunity. It was another, like, I'm afraid they're going to start Brock against Clemson this week when you've had weeks to where you probably should have made this choice if you're going to make it, and you're going to throw him to the Wolves again. Like, how many times is that kid going to be thrown in a shitty situation? And I don't know what DJU's health is as of Monday morning. We're recording this podcast. I haven't checked around on it. I haven't felt the energy to. We'll try to figure it out this week. But like, cool. You're going to start Brock Glenn potentially against Clemson.
Sounds like Sonnone's quitting a little bit too.
I didn't sleep for 12 hours. I was tired. It was a stressful week with the store, but brother's in Nashville and hadn't heard from him. We're good, but I slept a lot like yesterday, and I think I needed it. I feel better today.
My only opinion on the quarterback situation is whoever you start, you better stick within that game because you better design that game for that player. Yada yada. Coach speak, yeah.
Buyer Sonnone just moved to Luke Kromenhoek.
I think let me pull the schedule here. I think I have.
I'm a little bit of Sonnone on that currently because of the mess of the offensive line.
FSU ends the season with Florida at home, Charleston Southern at home, at Notre Dame. So I'd say after that Notre Dame game, if you played Brock at that point, you should start Brock after like this week. He should get the chance against Duke, at Miami, home against UNC. Those are 3 games that Miami's going to be that's going to be a toughie.
Duke's going to blitz the living hell out. Like Duke, I don't think Duke's very good. They are undefeated, which is kind of wild to me. But they're going to blitz the hell out of you. I mean, Manny Diaz is like Todd Grantham in a less sweaty, sad body. I mean, he loves to blitz. They probably, I don't know. Look it up. They probably have, if I had to guess, arguably the highest.
You really want me to look it up?
Yeah.
How
high is
their look up how to blitz, how much they blitz, or should I look up how to pronounce it?
I have to imagine their blitz rate's absurdly high. The man loves to blitz. The amount of times he'll throw 6 or 7 balls.
Wait, who's the man again?
Manny Diaz. Sorry, Zach.
Why? Sorry, Zach.
I just keep going. I can't stop.
I would kill to be in Duke's position right now. I mean, undefeated, just beat their rival, coming back 3 scores to win that game. Was
there an awkward handshake at the end of that one?
I did not see if
Mac Brown grab him by the neck. Duke's blitz per dropback is only at 22%. That's really low. That's like in the hundreds nationally.
Is it really?
That doesn't, unless I'm looking at this wrong.
That can't compute, right?
Alabama only blitz on 6% of its plays.
That's not true.
You slept 12 hours and forgot how to look up stats.
Possibly. I'm looking at defensive pass rush, copy of blitz per dropback. What's Florida State rank? That's good podcasting. If I can spell Florida State.
SMU had a season high in quarterback hurries, by the way.
All right, real quick, that offensive line, of all the perplexing things that we don't have a good, that makes sense, and there's a lot of them that don't make sense about this team, the offensive line being this bad with players who've played at a average to good level at different points in their careers is mind-boggling. I don't understand that one at all. Do you guys have legitimate? I looked at it last night. FSU, and part of this is DJU's fault, but it all works together. FSU is the worst team in the country in pressure rate allowed per dropback. I think it's like 44%. So almost half the time.
You looked up the right stat?
No. Yeah, actually, in this time I was in a better state of mind. 44% of the time. So almost every other dropback you're getting pressured is crazy way to live. And then they were also worse in the Power 4 in yards per contact before carry. So you might be the worst run blocking team and the worst pass blocking team in the country right now. Now, they've had injuries. That's part of it. But Darius Washington not playing forget the All-American that Mike Norvell thought he could play at, and the player he performed as in camp. He's not even playing anywhere near an all-ACC level right now. Barely as a starting caliber. Maurice Smith having bad snaps in year 6 as a center. It's difficult. Jeremiah Byers, I know, is not feeling particularly well, but they might be the most penalized offensive line in the country too. I don't think we have those numbers to look it up, but they get more. I think
Clay shared that they have more this year already through 5 than they had all of last year. Penalty wise.
And Byers, Sonnone, did this staff forget how to coach? The answer is no, right? It's a Sonnone.
One would think that didn't change.
Right. So, what's
but
the
that group's atrocious. I think it's too far. I think that group's been atrocious. They've been bad in every which way, which is ultra disappointing. And there's not a good excuse that fits it. I think the other is the offensive personnel and what the offense is capable of doing and what that allows defenses to decide to do.
Is it just that you miss Jordan that much, maybe, with the personnel?
He was definitely an eraser.
Yeah. To that extent, though. We knew.
I think it's a twofold thing. I think he was an eraser, and the offense was much better. Therefore, it drew better respect from opposing defenses. There is no respect for this offense by opposing defenses. I think opposing defenses think FSU's offense is ultra simple and very easy to scheme against currently.
It is. I mean, look at the difference. Cal last week had success not rushing the quarterback.
Memphis was mocking it on the sideline after a series or 2.
And Memphis was like, hey, we're just going to go with mug looks and double mug hack sack and just put pressure, either simulated or real pressure, and force you to get rid of the ball quickly. And basically you could do the 2 extremes and it works against this offense right now.
But they stink up front. That's a massive failure.
It is. It's difficult to comprehend just how quickly it's fallen off with players who you thought were decent, that you thought were good. Some of them. Yeah, I don't get it. Again, you have problems and you don't have a whole lot of good answers in season. All right, so I'm done with the Buyer Sonnone, sponsored by
The Turner Group.
You're halfway through the season here.
Not
even.
yet.
You're about to be after the Clemson
Thank
game.
God.
It sure is going to be a doozy. People there's going to be changes, right? And the amount we don't know.
I don't. Okay, I'll dive right into this because I've obviously shared. I don't think Mike's going to be quick to line him up and fire him. I don't think he's wired that way. I don't think that's
then he's going to be quick to get fired.
Well, you're going to owe him a hell of a lot of money to ultimately move off him. So I think there's a degree of time bought into that. My preference is that certain guys understand they probably should move on for whatever variety of reasons, whether contracts coming to an end or better opportunities. And that opens up more spots. But I don't think Mike Norvell is going to walk in the office and just clean house.
I don't think that's what I think he'll get rid of a few if he has his choice and try to.
What's a few to you?
3.
Right.
Yeah. But, I mean, that's not enough. He's
hang on. Because I think we're going down that the more important point of this is not what Mike Norvell would do. And that's an important part of it. Do we think Mike has full autonomy, at the end of this season, to tell people who are putting in money and are helping them make decisions on how to run the entire football, the cash cow floor that is for the city, for the university? Is there not going to be any sort of pressure to do more than that?
I think conversations between Mike Norvell and other people in the hierarchy, such as A.D. Alford, and some within the football program too, who I think Mike is willing to listen to in the sense of them being up the food chain, I think will certainly happen. I don't think anybody's going to walk in Mike Norvell's office and tell him you have to fire Coach X or Coach Y. And that he just goes and fires them. What?
If they win 2 games this year.
I don't think it will happen. I don't believe you just gave that guy and that staff the contracts you gave them, the extensions you gave them. To a year later come in and say, clean house, do this, do that. I don't believe that will happen. I also don't think that's the way Mike is designed. Do I believe they need to fire people, move on from people, and have a healthy amount of staff changes both on field and off field? Yes, without a shadow of a doubt at this point. I'm just not convinced. I'm not a believer at this point, nor have I heard anything actual factual other than people bitching on Twitter and message boards that lead me to think it's going to actually happen.
Because that's traditionally not been Mike's style, but he's never had a season like this either. So
people compared to Brian Kelly, they're nothing alike. And
Brian Kelly does yoga.
Okay, thank you. I was gonna have a witty follow up, but I caught myself. But I'm not.
Yeah, I
am not a firm believer that it's going to be a massive staff change.
I completely agree that hasn't been his style, and there's no evidence to show from his career that he's willing to do that. But I mean, I genuinely believe that several important people in the football hierarchy, and athletic department hierarchy, are under the understanding that his staff is not good at their job, especially when it comes to recruiting. There are people that are in charge of, financially funding this football program and its players and all sides of it that are going to have a say. And I don't believe that they're going to go to Norvell and be like, fire your entire staff, fire 8 assistants. But I think, that the evidence is all there, man. This staff in large part has been intact together for, after this season, 5 seasons. So go look at the recruiting results. Go look at how they developed those high school recruits. It's not good for the most part. I read an article.
Those things also existed when they went 13-0 and got extensions.
But now, they're not going 13-0.
Right, but they got those extensions. The pay happened.
So the extensions.
Here's my thing.
Let me get this out. real quick, the extensions are important because you just committed to all of those coaches. So if you're going to go ahead and get rid of 3 coaches, what's the average salary per coach on the staff?
Depends on who and what it is.
Let's just say, but yeah, so I'm saying 400,000 for average, right? So that's $1.2 million of getting rid of guys, with buyouts. It's probably a little bit less than that, depending on how long the contract is. I think you pay like 85% of what's owed if you don't get a job at a higher level, coordinator or NFL elsewhere. But then you have to go and hire coaches to replace them as well. And coaches aren't taking a discount to come coach at Florida State, I think, like they would have last year. Or, you know what I mean? Like, you're probably having to pay more money if you want to get an upgrade, someone with a high resume. So just real quick, and then I'll throw back to you, Chris. Like, if you are talking about getting rid of 3 coaches, and that's on the smaller side of what I think fans would want, you're talking about it's a multi-million-dollar process for a program that's already, spending a lot of money in a lot of different places and now losing a lot of money, which is about to happen. You're about to start not hitting numbers that you thought you were going to hit this year because of how poor the team is. Attendance numbers, booster numbers, those kind of things are not going to get better. They are going to get worse. So I'm just saying you have issues. Go ahead, Chris.
OCDC, do I think either of those are, likely to happen? No. Again, firing is the word I'm defining here, not necessarily departing, but firing. No, I don't think either of those happen. Quarterback coach, that's saying DJU is a failure, and to me, that falls as much on Mike Norvell's shoulders as anybody's shoulders within the program. Certainly more than Tony Tokar's shoulders, in my opinion, with regards to the decision to take and build around DJU. Running backs coach, I don't envision Yak being a guy that he's going to be in a rush to depart from. They tried to depart from Ron Dugans in the past, and we know that didn't happen. We know that history that's happened there. Chris Thompson, tight ends haven't been any good, but Chris Thompson's also the associate head coach and a guy that's ultra close to Mike Norvell in the sense of somebody that I think he believes he can rely upon as a veteran coach. Odell Higgins, we've been predicting a retirement for him on and off, I feel like, for the last half decade. Who knows when it will actually happen? Odell Higgins is one that knows, and he's not in a rush to share that with anybody. Randy Shannon, we all know, probably should be moved on from for every reason under the sun. Right, Zach? Pat Surtain, I think he's probably the guy that most people would say they don't really want to move on from. So and John Papuchis is the only one who I guess I didn't mention too. Yeah. High school recruiting at the position hasn't been good. Produced multiple first rounders via the portal. And the group currently is a mixed bag who's actually produced probably the most results of anybody outside of maybe Josh Farmer on that side of the ball. Everybody's so bloodthirsty when it all sucks. And I get that. And should there be change? Yeah, I think at this point you need to have your second staff and you need to figure out how do I go about not repeating the current history. And a big way of doing that is being much better at high school recruiting. And this staff to this point in time hasn't really shown that capability nor interest in doing so. So should they? Yes. Will they? I'm not convinced of that. And it's going to take actually hearing it from people within that building for me to believe it's going to happen. Where the firing number is far greater than 2 or 3.
Yeah, I probably should have prefaced it with this. Like, I don't like this part of the job where we start.
Oh, I hate it with a passion, but it's the realistic thing that happens when your win percentage is 20%. Like, you can't get away with that. That's not allowed. You've built this to something. You've created a expectation for yourself, and you understand there's a certain standard. I know that's a cliche, but there is a certain standard to what's expected here. And you had elevated program back to living in that domain. So it comes with it. It's part of the job, and they get paid handsomely. And they're all frustrated and miserable. And I'm not going to excuse anything away for them. They all get paid handsomely to do it. But at the same time, I think there's a healthy level of disgust in that building by how disappointing this has all been.
Yeah. And the coaching staff is they're disgusted by it. Like, they're not happy with it. And so you feel for them, but they are also paid handsomely, as Chris said. And that is part of what this job entails, is like you have to deal with that. That is volatile and that is results based. And when you do fail, like as they failed this season, sucks. But like this is a failure of a season based on expectations and money that's been invested. It is big business, and you're tasked with keeping that business running. And Florida State is going to start losing an amount of money that is not okay and not projected for a program that's already highly invested into its football program and invests in a lot of different projects right now. And so that's when change starts happening, is when money starts getting affected. And wrote about it last week, 2 weeks ago. I can't remember now. But when teams with high expectations and that have consistently won have this sort of drop off, and this sort of drop off, I don't know, is unprecedented. To go from 13 wins to what might be 2 or 3 wins, maybe is unprecedented. That does not happen. But when there is a drop off from good to bad swiftly, changes are made historically. Like that's how the business of football works. So I don't love talking about this part of it, but it is a reality of what we're covering, and that is what's going to happen. There's going to be people who lose their jobs. It's how much, who gets to say. Those are power dynamics that I find interesting moving forward as we cover this.
The biggest change that has to happen has to come from Mike Norvell.
Do you think we're getting psychology here. I think Mike is so far into it each week and just trying to get by. Like, I wonder how much reflection he's been able to do
Self-scouting.
of the
I don't think much
that got to this point.
With personnel decisions and the lack of pivoting with regards to some things like high school recruiting. I don't think it's been given a great deal of time. I think the focus has been trying to win the next game.
Trying to win the next game. That's what I think too.
And that's how he's wired and that's how he operates. But like, they've got to change the belief in how they go about recruiting. That has to be a fundamental change for the program now. Your theory worked until it didn't. When it didn't work, it was a massive failure. We have a ton of data that tells you the other theory works better. And, you know, that drum has been banged long and hard by my coworker there, Zach. And you gotta, the way the program is operated has to be adjusted. I guess it's the easiest, shortest way I can put that comment.
But like, now the ability to adjust it is compromised, right? Like who? That's it. Unless you go and you infuse in with new talent, with the coaching staff, who is able to attract new talent with players. Like, I don't understand how the results are going to change it a ton. So you're going to have to go ahead and get coaches with really high recruiting acumen that fit into what your culture is as a head coach and what you're comfortable with, to get back and recruit at a decent level. Because right now, like, the amount of negative recruiting that is being done against Florida State is so easy to do. And that's not going to be just high school stuff. Like, your bread and butter of the transfer portal, like, good luck trying to, if you decide to go get a quarterback this upcoming cycle, which I don't know if you want to, but like how many schools are going to say, oh, look what DJ Ongole or Mackenzie Milton did? Like, the thing that you had to sell is going to be compromised as well now too. And there's a lot of issues, and I'm not sure what the path is out of the hole that you've dug for yourself. There is a path, but I don't know what it looks like. I think you're going to have to probably go ahead and get a bunch of like G5 FCS players who you're going to have to throw the whole, we need a 6'3" defensive end, or the safety has to be at least 6 foot. You're going to have to throw those measurements out the window. You're just going to need football players at this point, and you can't be picky. You're going to have to be far more widespread in the nest, that net that you cast. And that's like how it starts, but maybe there's not like a good path out of this, I think, is kind of what we're talking about here with recruiting and just with rebuilding the program. It's just fallen off so quickly. You have issues.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about how they need to change the philosophy of how they build their roster, right? Well, the way this is setting
That's a
up,
huge deal, Zach.
but let me get to this point. The way this is setting up, they're going to have to go and take probably more portal players than they ever have this cycle, because who knows what the offseason is going to look like as far as retaining players on the roster. You're going to have some players move on, obviously, due to seniority, or some guys with possible, draft grades. But yeah, I mean, then you're looking at, once again, you're probably going to take as many or more transfer portal players than you did in high school recruiting. And we talked about high school recruiting already, but where are those additions going to come from? Especially quality ones. I mean, at this point, I think they just need to go and find tackle bodies and sign 2 or 3 of those and go sign 4 or 5 defensive linemen who have promising, upside and, work from there. Because, I think their approach to both those positions has been really catastrophic to this roster, and it's why every offseason feels like they need to go and hit in the portal at, defensive end and offensive line to field a quality product. And, they had to do that this past offseason, and the product is not even, average.
I don't have a whole lot more to add. Like, I think we've encompassed minutia and macro in this one, and we're midway through the season, and I think we're already talking about the off season. It's not great, but keep on keeping along. All right, trying to end it on a positive note, a palate cleanser as we get out of here. What would make you guys feel okay against Clemson? Like, what would be something that would make you feel okay? Like Brock Glenn starting and scoring 21 points. That feel good?
I mean, truthfully, for me, it's just playing the game out, playing the 4 quarters and playing hard, and let the chips fall where they may. And I don't expect them to win. I truthfully think Clemson's going to win very comfortably in that game. But play hard, even when that scoreboard gets tilted in the wrong direction. Keep playing hard, and no matter who's on the field, just keep playing hard. 11 guys making an effort, rallying to the ball, doing the best they can. Because I think the other is one of those that has a lingering effect and carry over game to game to game, and that can poison any and all hopes of any wins down the stretch type of thing.
Okay. Well done, Jack. Well done, guys. Well done. All right, for Chris Nee, Zach Blossing, I'm Brendan Sonnone. This has been On the Bench, a fitting ending to what we've seen so far this season. Bye.